Hey there. Tonight we're diving back, way back, to a place that history books often romanticize, but frankly, you'd probably hate. We're talking about ancient Sparta, not the epic battles or the glorious kings, but the actual, gritty, uncomfortable, flea-ridden reality of daily life if you happen to be born there. The truth is, you probably wouldn't last a single day. So, before we settle into the dust and the black broth, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it genuinely brings you a quiet kind of peace. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and what time it is right now. It's always strangely comforting to see who's out there drifting off to the same uncomfortable truths. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Settle in. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up, or rather you're woken up. Not by a gentle sunrise or the promise of coffee, of course. This is Sparta. The concept of gentle was, frankly, considered unmanly. And coffee, well, you'll find out about your breakfast soon enough. The year? Oh, a long time ago. Let's just say it's a period where democracy was a brand new, confusing idea for some, and for you, well, it was mostly about obeying. You're 10, or maybe 12. No one keeps track of birthdays here with quaint little cakes and presents. Your age is just a number that dictates which tier of suffering you're currently enduring. You're a Pides now, a Spartan boy, deep in the embrace of the agoge, the training, and let me tell you, it embraces you about as gently as a starved wolf. You're on the ground, not a mattress, not even a bedroll, just the ground. Specifically, a patch of hard earth mixed with dried reeds. Your pillow is likely a stone, or, if you were feeling luxurious, a small, smooth piece of wood. It's cold, always cold. The kind of cold that sinks into your bones and sets up permanent residence. You sleep in the open air year-round regardless of the season. Spartan children, you see, were too tough for roofs, or blankets, or, comfort. The alarm is a sharp, unceremonious kick to the ribs from your paedonomus, your instructor. No soothing chimes, no snooze button, just a rough jolt, a breathless gasp, and the immediate understanding that you are in fact still alive, and therefore still obligated. You untangle yourself from the half-numb state of semi-sleep, your muscles already protesting before you've even moved. Every joint aches. Your back feels like you've been sleeping on a pile of broken pottery, which you probably have inadvertently. Your legs, lean and hard, are stiff from the previous day's drills. Drills that involved a lot of running and jumping, and perhaps, if you were lucky, wrestling a slightly older, slightly stronger boy until you both collapsed in the dust. The air, it's a bracing mix of damp earth, sweat, and the faint, ever-present scent of boy. Unwashed boy. Because showers. In ancient Sparta. Oh, that's adorable. You'll get to that delightful piece of hygiene later. For now, it's just the smell of collective, resolute grimness. You roll over, pushing yourself up with hands that are already calloused and scraped. Your eyes, still heavy, scan the other lumps on the ground. Your fellow Pides. Some are already stirring, rubbing sleep from their eyes with fists that look disproportionately large. Others are still pretending to be dead. A common survival strategy, frankly, in this line of work. But the paedonomus doesn't discriminate. Another swift kick, another grunt of forced awakening. No one is left behind. Not truly. Not until they're dead anyway. And even then, they're probably dragged along for a while. You try to stretch again. A slow, deliberate movement, like an old dog waking up. Your fingers curl into fists, the knuckles already a little swollen from yesterday's lessons. Lessons often administered with a stick, or a fist, or simply pain. You don't have breakfast to look forward to. No warm porridge. No comforting mug of anything. You have duty. You have training. You have the relentless, unyielding demands of the Spartan state. And you know, hunger, that's always there. A quiet companion, a low thrumming in your gut that tells you, yes, you are alive. And yes, you are empty. This is your morning. Every morning. The sun hasn't even fully cleared the horizon. The stars are still fading in the inky blackness above. But you're up. You're moving. Because in Sparta, the day doesn't wait for you. And neither does the paidonomos. Time to start another day of being forged into whatever it is they're forging you into. A human weapon, probably. A very hungry human weapon. So you're up. Now what? Well, you can't exactly just roll out of bed and grab your phone, can you? You need to get ready for the day. And getting ready in Sparta means not really getting ready at all. Your wardrobe is minimalist. Very, very minimalist. You have one tunic. One. It's rough. It's wool. It's probably gray. Or mud-colored. Or, if you're lucky, just a faded sort of brown from accumulated grime. There are no fashion choices here. No debates over this shade of toga versus that shade of chiton. You wear what you're given. And you wear it until it literally falls off you. Or until you outgrow it so much that it becomes a midriff-bearing fashion statement that would get you beaten. Because revealing your midriff, not very Spartan. Underneath the tunic, nothing. No underwear. No socks. Just you. And a lot of fresh air. And a lot of chafing. You've learned to live with the constant itch. The persistent rub of coarse fabric against tender skin. It's just part of the experience. Like the hunger, and the cold, and the general feeling of vague, low-level irritation. As for shoes, what are those? You go barefoot, always. Through dust, through mud, through sharp pebbles. Your feet are hard as rocks, calloused beyond belief. But they're also constantly bruised, and cracked. And occasionally, if you're particularly unlucky, bleeding from a fresh cut. Because who needs sandals when you have character development, right? The idea is to make you tough, to make you impervious to minor discomforts. And honestly, it kind of works. After a while, you genuinely don't even notice the small, sharp things embedded in the soles of your feet. That's progress. Hygiene? Oh, that's a fun one. There's no running water, no soap, no morning shower. You might get to splash some cold water on your face from a communal trough, if you're fast enough. And if no one larger or meaner decides they need that water more than you do. Mostly, though, you just are. You exist in your own natural state, which, after days, weeks, months of relentless training, sweat, dust, and no washing, is a state of considerable pungency. Your hair is short, or shaved. No elaborate hairstyles here, less to grab in a fight. Less to attract lice. Though, let's be honest, you still have lice. Everyone has lice. It's a shared experience. A common bond. Like a tiny, scuttling, constantly itchy symbol of unity. You learn to ignore the crawling sensation, mostly. Or you learn to scratch discreetly, very discreetly. And your teeth, oh bless your heart. No toothbrush, no toothpaste. No mouthwash. You're relying on whatever roughage you happen to chew during your incredibly meager meals to scrape away the plaque, which is not very effective. So, your breath. Let's just say it could probably fell a small bird at 20 paces, and your teeth themselves are likely stained, chipped, and starting their slow, inevitable journey towards decay. Because who needs a dazzling smile when you have a spear, right? So, you're dressed. You're clean. You're ready. Ready for what? Ready for the relentless, bone-jarring, mind-numbing, body-breaking day ahead. Ready to be molded. Ready to be tested. Ready to be pushed to your absolute limits and then beyond. And you do it all with a face that hopefully shows no emotion. no fear, no exhaustion. Because in Sparta, emotion was also considered unmanly, and you wouldn't want to be unmanly, would you? Not when there's so much more suffering to get through. The sun is a sliver now, painting the eastern sky in thin, pale streaks. The air is still crisp, the ground is still hard, and your stomach is still making its quiet, persistent demands. Demands that will go unanswered, because breakfast is for the weak. Or, for Athens. And you're certainly not Athenian. All right, so you're up, dressed, or undressed, depending on your perspective, and hygienically prepared. Now comes the fun part. Physical training. This isn't your quaint school gym class, mind you. There are no soft mats, no participation trophies, and definitely no water breaks unless you're literally about to collapse. Even then, it's a quick splash and a snarled command to get back on your feet, worm. The first rays of sun are just touching the training grounds, revealing a dusty expanse where your daily torment unfolds. You line up with your Sicilia group, your messmates. These are the boys you live with, train with, steal food with, and will one day fight and possibly die beside. They are your family now. Your actual family back home is just a distant memory, if you even remember them. The Paedonomus barks orders. His voice, rough and gravelly, cuts through the morning chill. First up, running. Not a leisurely jog. Oh no, we're talking full-out sprints. Across uneven ground, over rocks, through shallow ditches. All designed to make you stumble, twist an ankle, or simply collapse from exhaustion. You run until your lungs burn, until your legs feel like lead, until the dust chokes you and your vision blurs. And when you think you can't run another step, you run another 10, because, in a real battle, the enemy doesn't politely stop to let you catch your breath. Then comes wrestling, without rules, of course, or pads, or any concept of fair play. You're paired with a boy roughly your size, or sometimes, if the Paedonomus is feeling particularly educational, a boy much larger than you. The goal isn't just to pin your opponent, it's to dominate him, to force him to submit, to endure pain. You learn holds, you learn throws, you learn how to fall without breaking your neck. Or, failing that, how to pretend you didn't just break your neck. You get elbowed, kneed, sometimes bitten. You learn to fight dirty, to take advantage of any weakness, because in the agoge, weakness is a luxury you cannot afford. The dust rises in clouds around you, thick and choking. The grunts and shouts of exertion fill the air. The occasional yelp of pain is quickly stifled. Complaining, after all, is also unmanly. Your body is a symphony of aches. New bruises bloom on top of old ones. Scrapes on your elbows and knees are already crusted with dirt and a thin film of dried blood. You taste grit in your mouth, and something vaguely metallic. Probably your own blood, or someone else's, doesn't really matter. There's also spear practice. With blunt spears for now. You learn to hold the heavy shaft, to thrust, to parry, to march in formation, to move as one, to trust the boy beside you, or more accurately, to know exactly where his spear will be, so it doesn't accidentally find its way into your own ribcage. Precision, discipline, repetition, hour after hour, until the movements are ingrained in your muscles, until you don't even have to think about it anymore. It just is. You're tired, so incredibly tired, but you can't show it. Not to the Paedonomus, not to your messmates, not to yourself. You grit your teeth. You push through the pain, because there's always more running, more wrestling, more demands. The sun climbs higher, beating down on the dusty training ground, making the air shimmer with heat. Sweat stings your eyes. Your tunic clings to your skin, and the hunger, that quiet companion, starts to make its presence felt a little more strongly now. Because all this exertion, you see, burns a lot of calories. Calories you, unfortunately, won't be replacing anytime soon. Enjoy the emptiness. It's character building. All right, the morning drills have successfully introduced you to new levels of physical discomfort. Congratulations. You're now a walking bruise, flavored with dust and regret. But don't worry, the day is still young, and so is your suffering. Now comes the educational part of your day. And by educational, I mean lessons designed to break your spirit, or at least teach you how to lie effectively. You're not learning math, or philosophy, or ancient Greek poetry, though you might hear a few lines of Tartaeus about glorious death in battle. Very uplifting stuff. Your lessons are practical, very Spartan practical. You gather in a small, dusty courtyard, or perhaps just sit cross-legged on the ground under the blistering sun. Your paedonomus stands before you, stick in hand. His face, grim and weathered, suggests he's seen a lot of boys just like you, and broken most of them. One of the key lessons is rhetoric, not the flowery kind you'd find in Athens. Oh no, Spartan rhetoric is like a punch to the gut. It's called laconic speech, meaning very, very brief. You learn to answer questions with as few words as possible, to make your point quickly, sharply, without unnecessary embellishment. If you ramble, you get hit. If you hesitate, you get hit. If you say too much, you definitely get hit. The idea is to foster clarity of thought and purpose, and pain avoidance. You learn to think on your feet concisely, to never waste a word. Because words, like food, are a luxury. You might be asked a question like, who is the best Spartan? The correct answer is not, oh please sir, it's you of course, because you're so wise and strong. The correct answer is probably me, or my father, or Leonidas. And you better be ready to back it up with a very concise reason, or you're in for a world of hurt. You also learn stealth, not in a fun, ninja-like way, in a you are hungry and must steal food way. This is an essential part of your education. You are deliberately underfed, starved even. The expectation is that you will steal food from the surrounding farms or from the communal stores, not because they want you to be a thief, but because they want you to be resourceful, to be cunning, to be self-reliant, and if you get caught, oh, you get beaten. Not for stealing, but for getting caught, because clumsiness. That's also unmanly. This creates a pervasive sense of low-level anxiety. You're constantly looking for opportunities, for weaknesses, for a chance to pilfer a turnip, or a piece of barley bread, or a handful of olives. You learn to move silently, to hide effectively, to distract others. You learn to be observant, to know where the guards are, where the shadows fall, where the farmers keep their meager stores. It's a constant, low-stakes game of survival. A game where the penalty for losing is a very, very painful lesson. The sun is now high overhead, beating down mercilessly. The heat radiates off the dusty ground. Flies buzz around your face, attracted to the sweat and grime. You're thirsty. You're hungry. Your mind, though tired, is buzzing with potential strategies for your next midnight snack run. Because, in a real battle, you might have to survive on your wits alone. And a stolen goat if you're lucky. So, yes, you're learning. You're adapting. You're becoming Spartan, whether you want to or not. And don't even think about saying thank you. That's 2 words. You've made it through the morning's physical and intellectual torments. Now it's time for lunch. Oh wait, there is no lunch. That low thrumming in your stomach, it's still there. Louder now. More insistent. But it will go unanswered. You see, Sparta wasn't big on 3 square meals a day. Or frankly, any square meals. Your main, sometimes only, meal of the day comes in the evening. So for now, you just endure. You learn to ignore the gnawing emptiness. To push past it. To focus on the next task. Whatever brutal demand it might bring. Because hunger, like pain, is a weakness you must conquer, or at least pretend to conquer. So instead of a midday meal, you're likely engaged in more community service. This could involve anything from collecting firewood for the communal fires to maintaining the training grounds, hauling stones, digging ditches, mending fences, all under the watchful, unblinking eye of your paidonomos. No slacking, no excuses, just more relentless back-breaking labor. Your hands, already calloused, might be picking up new splinters. Your back, already aching, might be screaming in protest. But you push through. You work alongside your messmates, the silence broken only by grunts of effort and the occasional, quickly suppressed groan. You're building something, ostensibly. Though mostly, you're just building endurance and resentment. Probably a lot of resentment. This communal labor is also a test of your discipline, your cooperation, your ability to function even when your body is screaming for rest and your stomach is tying itself in knots. You learn to rely on the boys beside you, to anticipate their movements, to work in unison, because if one of you falters, the whole task slows down, and then everyone suffers. And you don't want to be the one responsible for everyone else's suffering, do you? Not when they can make you suffer even more. The sun is directly overhead now, beating down with a fierce intensity. The air is thick with dust and the smell of dry earth. Sweat drips down your face, stinging your eyes. You can feel your stomach contracting, a hollow ache that resonates with every swing of your arm, every lift of a heavy stone. You learn to conserve energy, to move efficiently, to avoid unnecessary motions. Every movement becomes deliberate, every breath a conscious effort. Sometimes, if you're particularly lucky, you might find a dropped olive, or a forgotten fig, a tiny shriveled piece of sustenance that you quickly, discreetly pop into your mouth. You chew it slowly, savoring every bit of flavor, every speck of energy it provides. It tastes like freedom and desperation, and then it's gone, and the hunger returns, a quiet, persistent reminder of your Spartan reality. This midday period isn't about learning, it's about being hungry, being tired, being relentlessly pushed beyond what you thought your limits were. It's about learning to endure the mundane brutality of daily life, to keep going even when there's no immediate reward, no break, no comfort. Just the promise of more of the same, only slightly worse. Enjoy the afternoon. It's a long one. The relentless, foodless afternoon drags on. Your body is screaming. Your mind is foggy with fatigue and the constant dull ache of hunger. But in Sparta there are no rest periods, no nap times. There's only the next challenge. This part of the day often involves more specialized training. Think less gentle stretching, more survival skills. You might be learning how to forage, how to identify edible plants from poisonous ones, a critical skill given your diet or lack thereof. You're taught how to trap small game, how to set snares, how to track animals, all while trying to remain unseen by your paidonomos. Because again, getting caught while foraging for your own survival was a sign of incompetence, not initiative. The landscape around you, seemingly barren, reveals its secrets slowly. You learn to spot the faint tracks of a rabbit, the telltale rustle of a bird in the bushes. You learn to move through the scrub silently, to blend into the shadows. Your senses sharpen. Your hearing becomes acute. Your eyes, constantly scanning for both opportunity and threat, miss nothing. It's like being a low-level, perpetually famished spy, only with more dirt. Sometimes, this training involves mock battles. Not with full armor, of course. You don't have armor yet, and frankly, it would be too heavy for your starved frame anyway. These are bare-knuckle, all-out brawls, groups of boys against other groups. You learn to use the terrain to your advantage, to flank, to outmaneuver, to protect your messmates, and to deliver painful, decisive blows. The sounds of grunts, shouts, and dull thuds fill the air. The dust rises again, a thick, choking cloud. You stumble, you fall, you get up, you hit back, harder. Your body, already bruised and tired, is pushed further. Every muscle aches, your vision tunnels, but you keep moving, you keep fighting. Because retreating, surrendering, giving up, those are not options. Not in Sparta, not ever. The Paedonomus watches, impassive, occasionally stepping in with a well-aimed blow of his stick if someone isn't fighting hard enough. Or if someone is fighting too hard and shows undue aggression towards a fellow Spartan. There's a balance, you see. A very, very fine, very painful balance. The sun begins its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of orange and purple. A beautiful sight, if you had the energy to appreciate it. But you're too busy focusing on breathing, on keeping your feet, on the gnawing emptiness in your gut. The air cools slightly, but it's still thick with dust and the metallic tang of exertion. You can feel your ribs, every single one, pressing against your skin, a constant reminder of your state of perpetual famine. This afternoon session is designed to break you down, to strip away any lingering softness, any individual quirks, to mold you into a perfectly honed, utterly ruthless weapon. A weapon that operates on minimal fuel, a weapon that knows only duty and obedience, and the unwavering belief that suffering is, in fact, good for you, because, it builds character. And what character it is. The sun has finally dipped below the horizon, casting the training grounds in long, deepening shadows. The air grows cooler, bringing with it the damp chill of approaching night. Your muscles are screaming. Your head aches, and your stomach feels like a shriveled knot. But don't worry, the most anticipated part of your Spartan day is about to begin. It's dinner time. Sort of. You gather with your Syssitia group in the communal dining hall. No cozy candlelit tables here. Just rough wooden benches and plain tables. The hall is loud with the low hum of voices, a mix of older men, younger boys, and the occasional barks of the Paedonomoi. The air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, stale wine, and something cooking. And now, for the pièce de résistance, milas zomos, or, as it's more commonly known, black broth. You approach the communal pot, a deep, dark cauldron bubbling with the notorious Spartan specialty. It's a concoction of boiled pork legs, blood, salt, and vinegar. The color is an unappetizing dark brown, almost black. The smell, let's just say it's an acquired taste. Or more accurately, a taste you are forced to acquire, whether you like it or not. You receive a small, thin bowl of this culinary masterpiece. It's lukewarm, gloopy, and utterly unappetizing. You try to swallow it down. The vinegar gives it a sharp, almost metallic tang. The blood adds a richness that's not quite pleasant, and the bits of pork are often gristly. You chew slowly, deliberately. Each spoonful is a triumph of will over gag reflex. Because leaving food in your bowl, that's also unmanly, and leads to a beating. Along with the broth, you might get a small piece of barley bread. Hard, dense, perfect for soaking up the broth, if you can stomach it. And if you're lucky, perhaps a handful of olives, or a few figs. This is your meal. All of it, after a full day of starvation and brutal physical exertion. It's barely enough to keep a small child alive, let alone a growing Spartan warrior. The older men at the tables might make jokes about the black broth. Some pretend to like it, others lament its flavor but eat it anyway. Because it is the Spartan way. You eat in silence, or near silence. No idle chatter, no complaints, just the sounds of chewing and swallowing. You focus on the task at hand, ingesting enough calories to survive until tomorrow. This meal isn't about pleasure. It's about utility, about discipline, about teaching you to despise luxury. to live on the bare minimum, to appreciate the simple, brutal necessity of sustenance. You scrape your bowl clean, you chew every last crumb of bread, and then you sit, still hungry, but a little less desperately so. The communal dining hall is more than just a place to eat. It's a place for bonding, for political discussion among the older men, for the forging of alliances. For you, it's just another place where you are constantly observed, constantly judged, constantly molded. The light from the oil lamps casts long, dancing shadows across the grim faces. The air grows heavier, and you feel the fatigue deep in your bones now that the immediate pressure of the day's training has lifted. Almost lifted anyway. There's still more to come. Of course there is. So, you've choked down your black broth. Congratulations. You've consumed your daily dose of Spartan grimness. But the day isn't over. After dinner there are still duties, and lessons, and the subtle, insidious psychological games that permeate every aspect of Spartan life. The evening hours are often dedicated to further instruction, but not the kind you might expect. This isn't about memorizing historical dates. It's about character, about discipline, about learning how to behave like a Spartan. You sit with your Syssitia group, listening to the older men. They tell stories of famous Spartan battles, of heroic deeds, of glorious deaths. Stories designed to instill pride, to inspire loyalty, to make you crave the battlefield, a place, incidentally, where you might actually get a decent meal if you pillage it. These aren't just bedtime stories. They are lessons in valor, in sacrifice, in the absolute unquestioning devotion to the state. You're taught about courage, about self-control, about the shame of cowardice. The worst fate you learn is not death. It's to be a trembler, a coward, to be shunned, to be despised, to live a life without honor. This fear of social ostracization is a powerful motivator, perhaps even more powerful than the threat of a beating. Sometimes the older men will test you. They'll ask you difficult questions, not about history, but about morality, about justice, about what it means to be a good citizen. Your answers, of course, must be laconic, brief, to the point, and always aligned with Spartan ideals. You learn to think quickly, to distill complex ideas into simple, clear statements, to avoid ambiguity, and to never, ever appear unsure. Because hesitation? You guessed it, unmanly. The air in the communal hall grows heavy with the sounds of conversation, low and murmuring. The flickering oil lamps cast dancing shadows across the faces of the boys and men. You can feel the weariness settling deeper into your bones, but you remain alert, always alert. Because even in these moments of supposed relaxation, you are still being assessed, still being judged, still being trained. This is also the time when you might learn about the Spartan code of honor, about never turning your back on the enemy, about fighting to the last man, about bringing your shield back, or being carried upon it. No middle ground, no surrender, just victory or glorious death. It's a simple philosophy, brutal, unyielding, and utterly Spartan. You might also be given small specific duties, tidying the hall, fetching water, preparing for the next day's training, all done under the supervision of your older peers, who are just as strict, if not stricter, than the paidanomos. There is no escape from the relentless cycle of discipline, no moment when you are truly off duty. You are a Spartan, always, from the moment you are born until the moment you die, which frankly might be sooner than you think. The moon begins to rise, a pale disk in the darkening sky. The sounds in the hall slowly begin to diminish. You feel the pull of exhaustion, a deep, bone-weary fatigue that promises oblivion. But before that sweet release, there's one more thing, the last lesson of the day. And it's a doozy. So, settle in. It's almost over. Almost. The day is finally drawing to a close. You've endured starvation, brutal training, and lectures on glorious death. Now it's time for the final, unsettling ritual of your Spartan day. This isn't a bedtime story. It's a test. A horrifying, psychological test. In Sparta, the nights are cold, dark, and often dangerous. You're not just sleeping under the stars. You're sleeping under the constant threat of the Cryptia, the secret police. Or, more accurately, the secret assassins. Because in Sparta, your enemies weren't just outside the city walls. They were within them. The Cryptia were young, highly trained Spartans. They roamed the countryside, particularly at night. Their primary mission? To terrorize and murder the Helots, the enslaved population of Sparta. The Helots vastly outnumbered Spartans, and they were constantly on the verge of revolt. So the Cryptia kept them in line, through fear, through random acts of brutality, through assassinations. It was, let's say, a very effective form of social control. But here's where you come in. As a young Paides, you are also a target. Not for murder, usually, but for testing. The older boys, the Paidinomoi, even the Cryptia themselves might roam the barracks at night, looking for weaknesses, looking for a boy who is too soft, too comfortable, too easily startled. You learn to sleep lightly, to wake at the slightest sound, to respond instantly to a threat, even if that threat is just another Spartan trying to sneak up on you to see if you flinch. You lie on your reed bed, in the open air, surrounded by the other sleeping boys. The moon casts long, eerie shadows across the ground. The wind whispers through the dry grass. Every rustle, every distant sound, every subtle shift in the air makes your heart pound. Is that the wind? Or is it a footstep? Is that a sleeping grunt? Or is it a whisper? You hold your breath. You listen. Your senses, honed by a day of constant vigilance, are now on overdrive. This constant, low-level fear is deliberate. It's designed to make you resilient, to make you always ready, to make you fearless in the face of genuine danger. Because if you can survive the night in Sparta, what can truly scare you? Besides the black broth, of course. You might hear a muffled cry in the distance, from a Helot, or another boy who failed a test. You don't react. You don't flinch. You don't make a sound. You pretend to be asleep. You pretend to be unbothered. Because if you show any sign of weakness, any hint of fear, you become the next target, the next lesson. Sleep comes in fitful bursts, light, restless. You drift in and out, your subconscious mind still on high alert. You dream of food, of warmth, of comfort. But even those dreams are tinged with the cold reality of your Spartan existence. You wrap your single scratchy wool tunic tighter around you. You curl into a ball, trying to conserve what little body heat you have. And you wait for the dawn, the promise of a new day, and a new round of suffering. This is your Spartan lullaby. The whispering wind, the distant cries, the constant hum of fear. It molds you. It hardens you. It prepares you for a life of relentless discipline and an almost certain death in battle. But hey, at least you'll be tough when it happens, right? Just keep breathing. Don't make a sound. You survived. Again. The first sliver of dawn touches the eastern sky, signaling the brutal, beautiful beginning of another Spartan day. But for you, the long, cold night is finally over. You haven't slept deeply. No one does here. It's more of a low-power mode, a brief respite for your exhausted body to recalibrate. Your joints still ache. Your mouth still tastes like dust and the lingering bitterness of black broth. And that omnipresent hunger, your silent, persistent companion, is already beginning to make its presence felt. As the sky lightens, you slowly uncurl from your cramped position on the ground. Your tunic, thin and rough, offers little comfort against the morning chill. You can feel the new bruises blooming on your skin, a silent testament to yesterday's lessons. You rub your eyes, blurry from sleep and the constant, subtle exhaustion that defines your life. Around you, the other boys are stirring. Some already pushing themselves upright, their faces grim, expectant. Others still curled in a tight ball, trying to delay the inevitable. But the inevitable, you know, always comes. There's no moment of peace, no quiet reflection, no time to savor the simple act of having survived another night. Your mind immediately shifts to the day ahead. What new drill will the Paedonomos devise? What new test will you face? Will you find an olive today? Or perhaps a small, forgotten fig? These are the grand aspirations of a Spartan boy. The silence of pre-dawn is broken by the familiar, sharp kick from your Paedonomos. It's a familiar pain, a familiar jolt, a reminder that the cycle continues. You push yourself up, muscles protesting, but you push through it. You rise to your feet, your bare feet, hard as stone, already connect with the cold, dusty earth. You glance at the horizon. The sun, a fiery orb, is slowly climbing, promising another day of relentless heat and endless exertion. Another day of being molded, another day of being tested, another day of being starved. You don't complain, you don't sigh. You just are. You are a Spartan boy, a cog in the relentless machine of the state, a future warrior being forged in the crucible of hardship. And so, it begins again. The running, the wrestling, the drills, the hunger, the constant low thrum of fear, the unyielding discipline, the brutal pursuit of manliness. You haven't lasted a day in Sparta. You've just finished one night and started another morning. And you're already exhausted. And you're already hungry. And you're already dreaming of, well, not dreams. Because dreams were, you guessed it, unmanly. You stand tall. You stand straight. You stand silently. And you prepare for whatever fresh hell the Spartan day has in store for you. Because in Sparta, life wasn't lived, it was endured. And you are doing it. One miserable, hungry, itchy, painful, character-building moment at a time. Go back to sleep now. You probably need it more than they did. You've started the day. You're a Spartan. This means that the previous day's brutal morning drills were, in fact, just the warm-up. Now, as the sun begins its slow ascent, burning away the last vestiges of morning chill, the real training begins. Today it's the hoplon. Not your hoplon, of course. You're still too young for a full-sized bronze-faced shield. That's a privilege earned by years of unbroken, excruciating discipline. For now, you carry a smaller version. Still heavy, still awkward, but designed to teach you the core of Spartan warfare. The phalanx. You line up shoulder to shoulder with your messmates. The shield is strapped to your left arm, its weight immediately pulling at your shoulder, forcing your posture into an unnatural yet rigid stance. This isn't just about carrying a shield. It's about becoming part of the shield wall, a living, breathing, unyielding barrier of bronze and muscle. The Paedonomos barks orders. Advance. You shuffle forward, feet scuffing the dusty ground, trying to keep pace with the boy next to you, his shield overlapping yours by exactly half. Hold the line. You dig your bare heels into the earth, bracing against an imaginary impact. The weight of the shield seems to double. Your arm trembles. You can feel the strain in your back, your shoulders, your neck. This is not a comfortable position. Your neck is cramped. Your legs are burning. The boy next to you smells like old sweat and desperation. And you are perpetually aware of his proximity. Too close for comfort, but precisely close enough for survival. That's the Spartan paradox, you see. Intimate proximity for collective violent action. You practice turning, pivoting as one. Each movement precise. Each step synchronized. The goal is seamless, flowing movement. A single unified entity. Any hesitation, any misstep, any deviation from the line, and you're hit, not with a gentle tap, with a sharp, stinging blow from the paedonomus's stick, or a quick, brutal shove from an older boy, because in the phalanx, a single weakness can shatter the whole. And shattering the phalanx was, naturally, unmanly. The sun climbs higher, beating down on the training ground. Sweat drips from your forehead, stinging your eyes, mixing with the dust to form gritty streaks on your face. Your arm feels like it's about to fall off. The shield, though small, feels like a lead weight, and still, you hold it. Still, you move. Still, you endure. This training is designed to break your individuality, to replace it with a collective identity, to teach you that your life, your body, your very existence belongs to the state, to the phalanx, to the boy next to you. You learn to ignore the pain, to ignore the discomfort, to ignore the gnawing hunger that's been your constant companion since you woke up. Because, the enemy doesn't care if you're hungry. They just care if you break ranks. And you won't. Will you? Of course not. You're Spartan. Physical pain, hunger, and exhaustion are your daily bread. But in Sparta, the lessons go deeper. They embed themselves in your mind. Because punishment here isn't just about correction. It's about shaping. You learn quickly that missteps are not tolerated. And a misstep can be anything from a clumsy maneuver in the phalanx to a whispered complaint. Or showing emotion. The paedonomus doesn't shout often. His displeasure is usually conveyed through a silent, cold gaze. And then, the action. The primary tool of correction is the stick. Not a flimsy twig. A stout, heavy stick. It cracks across your back, or your legs, or your shoulders. The blows are sharp, stinging, leaving angry red welts that quickly bloom into purple bruises. You learn to flinch internally, to tense your muscles, to bite back any yelp of pain. Because showing pain, you guessed it, unmanly. Sometimes the punishment is more public, more humiliating. You might be forced to stand alone, naked, in the center of the training ground, under the gaze of your messmates and the older boys, while the paedonomus lists your failures. His words, laconic and cutting, strip you bare not just of clothing but of dignity. The sun beats down, flies buzz around you, the silence is crushing, and you endure it. You stand still, you stare straight ahead, you show no sign of shame, no sign of defiance, only acceptance. This is designed to foster a deep-seated fear of disgrace, of failing your peers, of failing the state. It teaches you to conform, to prioritize the group over the individual, to never ever stand out for the wrong reasons. Because in Sparta, the worst fate isn't death, it's living as an outcast. The older boys too play their part. They are encouraged to beat younger boys who transgress, to challenge them, to enforce discipline. This creates a hierarchy of suffering. You endure it now, but you know that one day you will be the one wielding the stick, the one enforcing the rules, the one passing down the pain. It's a tradition, you see, a time-honored Spartan tradition. But sometimes the punishments are subtle, more insidious. The paedonomos might make you perform an extra drill after everyone else has stopped, or deny you even your meager portion of black broth. A truly horrifying thought, a direct assault on your already starving body, and you will endure it, because you have no choice. The sun continues to beat down. The air is thick with the dust of the training ground. You can feel the new bruises throbbing. The old ones still ache. Your body is a map of pain, but your face is impassive. Your gaze is steady, because you have learned, you have adapted. You have become the Spartan they demand you to be. One more blow, one more humiliation, one more step towards being a perfect, unfeeling, unblinking warrior. And the day is still not over. The gnawing emptiness in your gut is a constant, persistent companion. It's a low thrumming that never truly fades, even after your meager evening meal. Because in Sparta, starvation isn't a problem to be solved. It's a teaching tool. You are perpetually hungry, deliberately so. The black broth, while technically sustenance, provides barely enough calories to keep you functioning. It's a constant, low-level torture designed to sharpen your senses, to make you resourceful, to make you ruthless. Because a hungry wolf, you see, is a dangerous wolf. This means constant internal strategizing. Your mind, even when exhausted, is always looking for an opportunity. A discarded olive, a dropped fig, a moment of inattention from a farmer tending his fields outside the barracks. Your eyes scan the ground relentlessly. You learn the subtle art of gleaning, picking up anything edible that might have been missed. This is not stealing, it's survival. The true test comes at night. The hunger, intensified by the day's exertion, becomes a burning ache. This is when you are encouraged to steal, to creep out of the barracks, to move through the shadows like a ghost towards the communal stores, or the nearby farms. The thrill of it is intoxicating, the risk immense. You move silently, bare feet, making no sound on the dusty earth. Your senses are heightened. Every rustle of leaves, every distant dog bark, every shift in the wind feels like a potential trap. You learn to anticipate the patrol routes of the Paidonomai, to read the subtle signs of a disturbed patch of ground, to know exactly where the moon will cast the deepest shadows. It's a game of wits, and the prize is the difference between aching hunger and mere emptiness. If you succeed, you return with your spoils, a few handfuls of barley, a stolen apple, perhaps even a small scrawny chicken, silently caught and dispatched. You eat quickly, discreetly, chewing slowly to extract every last bit of flavor, sharing with your closest messmates, a silent act of loyalty and defiance. The taste is heavenly, more satisfying than any feast, because it was earned through cunning and risk. But if you are caught, oh, the punishment is swift and brutal, not for stealing, but for clumsiness, for incompetence, for failing to be subtle enough. The beatings are severe, and sometimes they'll even deny you your black broth the next evening. A truly cruel and effective punishment, because nothing you learn is worse than the intensification of that constant hunger. This relentless cycle of starvation and pilfering molds you. It teaches you self-reliance, resourcefulness, and a deep, abiding respect for food. Every morsel becomes precious, every opportunity for sustenance, a high-stakes gamble. You are a creature of instinct, driven by basic needs, and honed by constant deprivation. The sun is beginning to set now, casting long shadows. The air cools, and your stomach is already reminding you of the night's potential. Another hunt, another risk, another chance to prove you're Spartan. Even if it means being a very, very hungry, very, very selfie Spartan. In Sparta, the concept of personal space was, shall we say, undeveloped. You live in constant, inescapable proximity to others. From the moment you wake until the moment you drift into fitful sleep, you are never truly alone. This isn't just about sharing a barracks. It's about a complete erasure of individual privacy. Your sleeping arrangements, as you know, are communal. A patch of hard earth, a scattering of reeds, and a dozen or so other boys within arm's reach. There are no partitions, no screens, no individual beds. You see and hear everything. The restless shifting of bodies, the occasional cough, the soft sounds of troubled sleep, and the very, very loud sounds of communal bodily functions. Because you know, nature calls for everyone. During training, you are always part of a group. In the phalanx, you are shoulder to shoulder, literally. Your shield overlaps the next boy's. Your movements are synchronized. You are a single unified entity. There is no room for individual expression, no space for independent thought. You learn to anticipate the movements of others, to breathe with them, to move as one. Even in the communal dining hall, privacy is a foreign concept. You eat with your Syssitia group, under the watchful eyes of the older men and the paidanomoi. Every bite is observed, every gesture analyzed. You eat in silence, or in low murmurs, no private conversations, no personal complaints. Your meal is a communal ritual, not a private indulgence. And hygiene? Oh, that's where the lack of privacy really shines. Your infrequent bathing consists of a quick splash in a communal trough if you're lucky. Often, it's just enduring the accumulated grime. You become intimately familiar with the smells of your messmates. The sweat, the dust, the stale air, and the pervasive, ever-present scent of unwashed boy. It's a symphony of natural human odors. Frankly, and you are a primary performer. There's nowhere to hide, no corner to retreat to, no moment when you are truly unobserved. Your entire life is lived in the open. Every success, every failure, every moment of weakness. It's all laid bare for everyone to see. This fosters a relentless self-awareness, a constant internal monitoring of your own behavior, because any deviation from the Spartan ideal will be noticed and corrected. This communal living is designed to strip away your individuality, to crush any sense of personal ego, to teach you that you are merely a component of a larger machine, the Spartan state. Your wants, your needs, your desires, they are secondary to the collective. You are taught to find comfort in the presence of your peers, to rely on them, to trust them with your life. Because in battle, your survival depends on it. The sun is nearing its peak. The air is thick and still. You feel the constant, soft brush of another boy's arm against yours. The low murmurs of conversation, the rhythmic breathing of the group. It's a constant, inescapable presence, and you learn to accept it, to ignore it, to become one with it. Because in Sparta, you are never alone. Not truly. Not even in your dreams. The brutal system of the agoge isn't just enforced by abstract rules or distant authorities. It's brought to life, quite literally, by the older boys. They are your immediate superiors, your role models, and your tormentors. They are the ones who put the theory of Spartan discipline into painful practice. The hierarchy is rigid. You, as a Paides, are at the bottom. Above you are boys a few years older who've endured what you're currently going through, and above them still older, more hardened youths, culminating in the Irenes, those in their late teens and early 20s, who are effectively junior instructors. They are given immense power over you, and they use it. They supervise your training. They inspect your beds. They watch your every move. And they are encouraged, actively encouraged, to enforce discipline. If you are slow, they prod you. If you are clumsy, they trip you. If you complain, they beat you. Their sticks are just as swift and painful as the paidanomises, sometimes even more so because their blows are infused with the fresh resentment of recently endured suffering. It's a cycle of pain, you see, and you are currently at the receiving end. But it's not always just physical. They also test your mind, your wit, your courage. They might ask you challenging questions, designed to expose your ignorance or your emotional weakness. If you answer incorrectly, or if you show fear, you face a different kind of punishment, humiliation. You might be mocked, ridiculed, or forced to perform a degrading task in front of your peers. Because shame, in Sparta, is a weapon more potent than any stick. This system creates a strange dynamic. You fear them, you resent them, but you also look up to them. They are what you will become. They represent the ideal Spartan. They have survived. and you crave that survival. So, you obey, you learn, you adapt, you mimic their stoicism, their ruthless efficiency, their unwavering gaze. Sometimes, if you're lucky, an older boy might show a rare flash of something akin to mentorship, a quiet word of advice, a subtle tip on how to evade a paid enormous during a night raid, a shared crumb of stolen food. These are rare moments, precious moments, small fleeting gestures of camaraderie in a system designed to strip you of all but the most brutal necessities. They are your peers. They are your tormentors. They are your future. The sun is high, beating down on the dusty training ground. You're performing another drill, the weight of the shield heavy on your arm. You can feel the eyes of an older boy on you, watching, assessing. You try to keep your form perfect, your face blank, your breathing steady, because you know, deep down, that one day you will be standing in his place, watching, assessing, and enforcing. It's the circle of life, Spartan style, and it is utterly unbroken. Let's circle back to a foundational truth of your Spartan existence. You smell. Not just a little. Not just after a long day. You possess a deep, rich, multi-layered aroma that would make a modern person recoil in horror. And you are surrounded by hundreds of others who smell exactly the same. Showers, as we discussed, are non-existent. Soap is a futuristic fantasy. Your hygiene routine consists of scraping off visible grime with a piece of wood or a rough cloth if you even bother. Most days it's just the accumulation of sweat, dust, dried mud, and whatever lingering smells cling to your single unwashed wool tunic. It's a bouquet, truly, a very human bouquet. The air in the communal barracks, in the training grounds, in the dining hall, it is thick with this scent. The pervasive odor of unwashed bodies, exertion, and the faint, ever-present tang of animal byproducts. You become accustomed to it. Your nose, overwhelmed, simply tunes it out. It becomes the normal state of being. Like the cold, like the hunger, like the constant aches. Your hair, short or shaved, is a battlefield for lice. They are a constant, itchy companion. You learn to scratch discreetly, a quick, almost unconscious movement of your fingers against your scalp. Everyone has them. Everyone endures them. They are just another part of the Spartan experience. A tiny, biting reminder of your unbreakable bond with your fellow sufferers. Your skin is rough, calloused from constant friction, prone to rashes from accumulated sweat and grime. You're always a little itchy, always a little uncomfortable. But you learn to ignore it, to push past the sensation. Because discomfort, you see, is a sign of weakness. And weakness is, say it with me, unmanly. This pervasive lack of hygiene isn't just a byproduct of the times. It's intentional, like everything else in the Agog. It teaches you to live without luxury, to despise softness, to be tough, both physically and mentally. It strips away vanity. It forces you to confront your own raw, animalistic existence. Because in battle, no one cares if you smell like a rose. They care if you can hold your shield. The sun is beginning to dip, casting long shadows across the dusty ground. The air is heavy. You can feel the grime on your skin, the sweat drying in crusts on your forehead. You might unconsciously scratch your arm, or run a finger through your hair. It's a small automatic gesture, a faint acknowledgement of your constant low-level irritation. But you don't think about it. Not truly. You're too busy focusing on the lessons, on the training, on the relentless demands of the day. The smell, the itch, the grime. It's all just background noise now. The normal state of being, the very essence of your Spartan reality. And you wouldn't have it any other way. Or at least, you tell yourself you wouldn't. In Sparta, your body is a weapon, and like any weapon, it's subjected to immense stress. But unlike a weapon, it's also susceptible to something far more insidious, injury and illness. And in this world, there are no safety nets. No ambulances, no soft hands of a nurse. Just you, your pain, and the stoic expectation that you will endure. Let's say you twist an ankle during a training drill. A common occurrence. A sudden shift of weight, a hidden rock, and your foot rolls. A sharp, searing pain shoots up your leg. You fall. You try to stifle the cry, to bite back the yelp, but the shock is undeniable. The paedonomus is there instantly, not with sympathy, with an impassive gaze. Perhaps a swift kick to your other, uninjured leg. Get up. The command is flat, unyielding. You try. You push yourself, gritting your teeth, every movement sending fresh waves of agony through your ankle. If you can stand, even hobble, you are expected to continue training, to push through the pain, to show no weakness, because pain, you see, is a mind game, and you are not to lose. If the injury is severe, a broken bone, a deep cut, a dislocated joint, treatment is primitive at best. There are no doctors in the modern sense, no sterile tools, no concept of infection. An older boy, or perhaps a paedonomus with some rudimentary knowledge, might try to set the bone. Without anesthesia, of course. Just brute force. The agony is blinding. You might pass out, which frankly would be a blessing. Then comes the waiting. For the bone to knit. For the wound to heal. You're likely confined to your sleeping spot in the open air. You're still expected to consume your black broth. Still expected to endure the cold nights. Still expected to be silent. The pain is constant. A dull throb that intensifies with every slight movement. The wound, if left open, quickly festers. Red streaks appear. Pus forms. The stench is sickening, because bacteria, you see, were not yet a recognized enemy. Fever soon follows. Your body burns, then shivers uncontrollably. You drift in and out of consciousness. Hallucinations might flicker at the edges of your vision. You sweat. You groan. But still, you try to keep it quiet. The boys around you will notice, but they will also ignore it, unless you truly falter, truly break. If you recover, you return to training, with a limp, with a scar, with a new, deeper understanding of pain and resilience. But if you don't, if the infection takes hold, if the fever becomes too severe, you simply fade quietly in the night. Your body, deemed imperfect, is removed. Another casualty in the relentless pursuit of Spartan perfection. No funeral, no ceremony, just an absence. The sun is sinking. The air grows cooler. You feel the aches in your body, the smaller pains that are your daily companions. And you know, deep down, that survival here is not guaranteed. It's a constant, brutal lottery, and every day you wake up, every day you push through the pain, is a victory. A very, very painful victory. You've learned to fight, not with fancy swords or ornate armor. Those are for the wealthy, the foreigners. You've learned to fight with nothing, or more accurately, with what little you are given, and the brutal efficiency of your own body. Your training is a constant reminder of this. Bare hands are your primary weapon. Your knuckles are bruised, your fingers calloused. You know how to strike, how to block, how to grapple, and how to make every single blow count. You learn to use your weight, your momentum, the element of surprise, because in a real fight, you won't always have a weapon. When you do use a weapon, it's simple. The spear, initially blunt, later sharpened, heavy, unforgiving. You learn to thrust, to parry, to hold the line with it. It's an extension of your arm, your will, and your willingness to kill. The sword, if you ever get one, is a short, brutal blade, designed for close quarters combat, for thrusting, not slashing, because in the phalanx, There's no room for elegant flourishes, but the greatest weapon you learn is your mind, your cunning, your ability to adapt. When you're underfed, constantly pushed and forced to steal to survive, your wits sharpen. You learn to think quickly, to assess a situation in an instant, to exploit a weakness, to seize an opportunity. This is demonstrated in the Cryptia exercises. Not just being hunted, but being the hunter. Sent out with nothing but a short dagger and a meager ration, you are expected to survive for days, to live off the land, to kill helots, to return stronger. It's a brutal, solitary test. It teaches you absolute self-reliance, absolute ruthlessness, and the ability to operate effectively when cut off from all support. Because in enemy territory, no one's coming to save you. You learn to move silently, to disappear into the landscape, to become an invisible threat. Your bare feet are an asset, not a liability. They allow you to feel the ground, to move without sound, to sneak up on an unsuspecting target. It's the closest you get to a ninja, only with more hunger and considerably worse personal hygiene. The sun is almost gone, bleeding red and orange into the western sky. You're performing your final drills of the day, movements ingrained through endless repetition. Your body knows what to do, even when your mind is numb with exhaustion. Every thrust of an imaginary spear, every block of an unseen blow, every pivot of your body. It's all a testament to the training, the unforgiving, relentless training that has stripped away everything but the essential. You are being forged into a tool, a weapon, a living embodiment of Spartan efficiency, without fancy gear, without elaborate strategies, just brute force and cunning, and an unwavering will to endure. Because in Sparta, the ultimate victory is not just winning, it's surviving, with nothing but your own, very, very tough self. While your life is consumed by the relentless grind of the agoge, you are still dimly aware of the world outside the barracks, specifically the world of the helots. They are the enslaved population of Laconia and Messenia. They are everywhere. They farm the land you eat from. They perform the labor that frees Spartans for war. And they are, always, a potential threat. You see them in the fields, working, silently. Their faces, grim and resigned, betray little emotion. But you are taught to distrust them, to fear them, to view them as a constant simmering rebellion waiting to erupt, because their numbers are vast, and yours are few. Your interactions are minimal. You might encounter them while foraging for food. A fleeting glance, a quick, silent retreat, or if you're a little older, a more dangerous confrontation. You are taught that the helots are not truly human, that they are inferior, that they exist only to serve Sparta. This dehumanization is a crucial part of your training. It makes it easier to kill them. When the time comes, the Cryptia is the brutal manifestation of this fear. As you grow older, you will participate in it. Sent out at night, with only a dagger, you will hunt helots, not for sport, but to prove your cunning, your ruthlessness, and to instill terror in the enslaved population. These are not battles. They are assassinations, a brutal form of population control, because, as you learn, an obedient slave is a terrified slave. You learn to recognize their subtle signs of defiance, a lowered gaze that holds too much resentment, a flicker of anger in their eyes. These are warnings, signs of potential trouble. You are taught to report anything suspicious, to be vigilant, to always be aware of the underlying tension that permeates Spartan society. The relationship between Spartan and helot is symbiotic, yet utterly brutal. They feed you, they support your lifestyle of constant training, and in return, you keep them enslaved. You suppress their rebellions. You maintain the order that allows Sparta to exist. It's a delicate balance, a knife-edge existence. and you are a vital part of maintaining that balance. The sun has finally set. Darkness deepens. The air grows colder. You hear the distant sounds of the Helot villages, the low murmur of voices, the faint glow of their fires. It's a different world from yours. A world of fear, of oppression, and a world that exists solely to support your rigid, brutal existence. You are taught to despise them, to dominate them, to kill them without hesitation. And you will, because you are Spartan, and they are not. And that's all that matters. The day is done. Your body aches, your stomach growls, and your mind is a weary hum of discipline. But as you lie on your hard bed, under the cold stars, the ultimate lesson of Sparta resonates through you. No retreat. This isn't just a military tactic. It's a philosophy, a way of life. From the moment you woke, you've been taught that retreat is the ultimate shame, the unforgivable sin. You carry your shield, not for your own protection, but for the man beside you. To abandon it, to abandon your place in the phalanx, is to abandon your comrades, your city, your very identity. It's simply not an option. You learn about it in the stories of heroes, in the legends of Thermopylae, where Leonidas and his men stood firm, even against impossible odds. They didn't retreat. They didn't surrender. They died, gloriously. For Sparta, this ideal is hammered into you, day after day, blow after blow, until it's embedded in your bones. Your training emphasizes this: the running until you collapse, the wrestling until you submit, the constant hunger. It's all designed to build an unbreakable will, to teach you that even when your body screams for rest, for food, for safety, your mind refuses. Your spirit endures. You simply do not stop. The fear of being a trembler, a coward who breaks rank or flees the battle, is a powerful motivator. More terrifying than any physical pain, more feared than death itself. To return to Sparta, a shamed man, an outcast, unable to join your messmates, unable to participate in the syssitia, that is the true horror. So you learn to push through, to keep going, no matter what. As you drift towards a shallow sleep, the cold bites at your bare skin. Your stomach growls, your muscles twitch with phantom pains. But your mind is surprisingly clear. The concept is simple, brutal, unyielding. There is only forward. There is only the line. There is only Sparta. This is the legacy you will inherit, the mindset that will define your life, your purpose, and eventually, your death. You are a Spartan, and Spartans do not retreat. They do not surrender. They stand firm. They fight and they die for the state. And sometimes, if you're lucky, they even manage to get a quick, brutal meal before it all ends. The stars glimmer above you, cold and distant. The same stars that watched over Leonidas. The same stars that will watch over you. You are a warrior, forged in pain, honed by hunger, defined by an unwavering, absolute refusal to back down. Now, go to sleep. You'll need every minute of it, because tomorrow, the sun will rise, and you will not retreat. You've been forged. You've endured. You are, by all accounts, a Spartan warrior. You've navigated the treacherous waters of the Agog, survived the Cryptea, and even mastered the art of the silent, desperate raid for food. Now, as you reach adulthood, you might think you get to reclaim some semblance of a personal life. You'd be wrong, of course. Family as a concept in Sparta was complicated. Your parents, if they were still alive and not ashamed of your performance in the Agoj, were largely strangers. Your earliest memories of them are likely vague, overshadowed by the immediate visceral reality of the barracks. You were taken from them at age 7. 7. That's younger than most primary school children today. And for the next decade or more, your loyalty was to the state, to your syssitia, to your paidonomos, not to some quaint notion of blood ties. Even as an adult, you don't live at home in the way you might imagine. Oh, you might have a home, technically. A small, Spartan, simple dwelling in the city. But your actual daily life still revolves around the communal dining halls, the syssitia. You eat there, you socialize there. You spend the vast majority of your time there with your fellow warriors. Your wife, if you have one, comes to visit you. Yes, she visits you. At the mess hall. Often in the dark. More on that later. The idea was to prevent attachment. To foster a singular loyalty to the military unit, to the state, above all else. Your family was a secondary concern. A means to produce more warriors. Not a source of emotional comfort or personal fulfillment. You learned to suppress those urges. To view them as distractions. Because emotion, you know, was also unmanly. Except, of course, for the righteous rage of battle. That was encouraged. Your parents, having raised you in the Spartan way, understood this. They expected it. They had gone through it themselves. Their pride lay not in your personal happiness, but in your unwavering adherence to Spartan ideals, in your courage on the battlefield, in your willingness to die for the state. If you returned from battle with your shield, they were proud. If you returned on it, they were proud. If you returned without it, well, you probably didn't return. And if you did, it would have been worse than death. So, your interactions with your actual family are formal. Brief, focused on duty and state matters. You don't share your fears with your mother. You don't confess your longings to your father. Those are weaknesses, and weaknesses are, say it with me, unmanly. You are polite. You are respectful. But you are also emotionally distant. A product of the system that forged you. The sun sets. The stars begin to emerge. You're in the mess hall listening to the murmuring conversations of older warriors. The smell of black broth still lingers in the air. You think for a fleeting moment of your childhood home, of a face you vaguely remember, but the thought is quickly pushed away. Replaced by the cold, clear logic of Spartan duty. Because your family is the phalanx now, and your home is the battlefield, and that is all you need. You exist, you train, you eat, or rather don't eat. But underlying all of this, the very foundation of your Spartan life is the existence of the Helots. They are the enslaved population of Laconia and Messenia, bound to the land far outnumbering their Spartan masters. And your life, your privilege, your entire brutal training depends on them. You see them in the fields every day, toiling under the relentless sun. Their backs bent, their faces grim. They are the ones who produce the food that you eat, or rather the food that Sparta rations to you in the form of black broth. They are the silent, resentful engine of the Spartan state. Without their labor, you couldn't spend your entire life training for war. You'd be farming yourself. And that would be, frankly, undignified. Your training from a young age instilled a deep sense of superiority over them. They are considered lazy, cowardly, incapable of self-governance. This dehumanization is crucial. It makes it easier to accept their enslavement, easier to kill them, and kill them you do. As part of the Cryptea, you participated in the annual terror. Creeping through the countryside at night, hunting down and murdering any helot deemed too strong, too intelligent, too likely to incite rebellion. It wasn't justice. It was control. Through fear, you're taught to view them with suspicion, even contempt, to never trust them, to always be vigilant, because while they are outwardly submissive, the threat of helot revolt is a constant, underlying fear in Spartan society. You are the iron fist that keeps them down. The silent, ever-present threat, a perpetual state of low-level civil war, just below the surface of your highly ordered society. Their sheer numbers are terrifying. For every Spartan citizen, there are perhaps 7, 8, or even 10 helots. A vast, simmering population of potential rebels. This imbalance is why the Spartan state is so utterly focused on military discipline, why you are trained so relentlessly, why every aspect of your life is geared towards maintaining control. Because if they ever truly united, if they ever truly rose up, Sparta would be drowned in a sea of their vengeance. So, as you walk past the helot workers in the fields, their backs bent under the sun, you maintain your impassive gaze. You show no emotion, no pity, no recognition of shared humanity. You are a Spartan. They are helots. The distinction is absolute. The order is divinely ordained. And your role is to ensure it remains so. Because without them, there is no Sparta. And without you, there is no control. It's a brutal dance, performed to the constant silent hum of resentment and fear. And you are the reluctant, but very effective, enforcer. You've heard it all before, the black broth. But let's delve deeper into the gastronomic horrors that define your Spartan existence. Because your diet isn't just about sustenance, it's another pillar of your state-mandated misery. Beyond the legendary melazomos, that delightful concoction of boiled pork, blood, salt, and vinegar, your diet is stark, monotonous, and utterly devoid of anything that might be described as enjoyable. You are given just enough to survive, to function, to keep your muscles twitching during drills, not to thrive, and certainly not to experience culinary delight. Your main staple, after the broth, is barley bread. Not soft, fluffy, artisanal bread. Oh no, this is hard, dense, coarse, made from barley flour, often ground coarsely, sometimes mixed with bran or whatever else made it heavier. It's more akin to a brick than a loaf. You tear at it with strong, calloused fingers. You chew it slowly, painstakingly. It fills your stomach, briefly, but offers little in the way of flavor or comfort. It's utilitarian bread, the kind of bread that silently judges you for wanting more. Vegetables are limited, mostly root vegetables like turnips or lentils, boiled, bland. Occasionally, if the harvest is good, some fresh olives or figs. But these are rare treats, quickly consumed and quickly forgotten in the face of persistent hunger. Fruit, beyond the occasional fig, is not a regular feature. Spices, don't be ridiculous. Those are for decadent Athenians. Or, people who enjoy things. You don't. Meat is scarce beyond the pork in the broth. You might get small portions of other meats on very rare occasions, perhaps during a religious festival or after a successful hunt. But meat is a luxury, a protein source to be earned, and then consumed with the solemnity of a ritual. Fish, if you're near a river, might make an appearance, but again, sparingly. Your portion sizes are deliberately meager. You are constantly hungry. This isn't an accident. It's designed to keep you lean, to keep you sharp, to make you resourceful in times of scarcity, which for you is always. It also discourages any inclination towards laziness or self-indulgence. Because when you're hungry, you don't think about anything else, except maybe how to steal more food. The communal dining experience, the syssitia, is also part of the diet. You eat with your messmates, your peers, and the older warriors. This prevents any personal indulgence, any secret feasting. Everyone eats the same. Everyone endures the same. It fosters uniformity, discipline, and a collective misery that paradoxically forges a strong bond. The sun begins its slow decline. Your stomach, that ever-present reminder, rumbles softly. You're anticipating the black broth tonight. Not with excitement, but with a resigned acceptance. Another bowl, another day survived. Another meal that reminds you exactly where you stand in the Spartan hierarchy. A perpetually hungry, uncomplaining, very efficient warrior. And that, you realize, is your purpose. Even if it tastes like black broth. You, as a Spartan male, are defined by the agoge and the phalanx. But what about the Spartan women? Oh, they're just as tough, perhaps even tougher. While boys were taken at 7 for state training, Spartan girls were also subjected to a rigorous, state-controlled upbringing. Unlike other Greek city-states, where women were largely confined to the home, weaving and raising children in seclusion, Spartan women were very active. They trained physically, they ran, they wrestled, they threw the discus and the javelin, and they did it in public. Sometimes, gasp, without much clothing, which, of course, scandalized the rest of Greece. This wasn't for combat, not directly. It was to ensure strong, healthy mothers. Because strong mothers, you see, produced strong sons, and strong sons meant more warriors for Sparta. Their bodies were lean, muscular, not for beauty, but for utility. They were admired for their physical prowess, not their delicate features. A novel concept in ancient Greece, frankly. Spartan women held considerable influence, far more than their Athenian counterparts. They could own and inherit property. In fact, by some accounts, they owned up to 2/5 of all Spartan land. This gave them economic power, which translated into political leverage. They were the managers of the estates, the overseers of the helots. While you were off training and fighting, they were running the domestic economy that supported the entire military machine. Their wit was legendary. They were known for their laconic speech, just like the men. Sharp, cutting, to the point. Stories abound of Spartan mothers telling their sons to return from battle with your shield or on it. No tears, no sentimentality, just unwavering expectation of valor. Because failure, for a Spartan woman, was just as humiliating as for a man. But their lives, too, were defined by the state. Their purpose was primarily procreation. To produce more Spartan warriors. Marriage was less about love and more about duty. They were, in essence, breeders of soldiers. Their emotional lives were also likely suppressed, just like yours. Because in Sparta, individualism was discouraged for everyone. The sun begins its slow descent. You might catch a glimpse of a Spartan woman perhaps in the distance, practicing her javelin throw. Her movements are fluid, powerful. She is strong, resolute, just like you, just like every Spartan. Because in this society, there is no room for softness, not for men, and certainly not for women. She will also eat a meager diet. She will also live a life of discipline. She will also send her sons off to the agoge with an unblinking eye. Because the Spartan ideal is gender neutral when it comes to toughness, and that is a kind of equality you might not have expected. You've survived the agoge. You're a fully fledged Spartan warrior. Now, the state has one more demand of you: procreation. Marriage in Sparta isn't about romantic love, or grand ceremonies, or, frankly, your personal feelings at all. It's a civic duty. A strategic imperative. A cold, hard requirement to produce more warriors for the state. You are expected to marry, typically around the age of 20 or 25. The state might even pressure you if you delay, or gasp, fine you. The Spartan population was always small, and producing healthy offspring was paramount. Your bride is likely chosen for her physical attributes, her family's standing, and her ability to bear strong children. Her wit and intellect are bonuses, not primary considerations. Though, given Spartan women's training, they're probably sharper than you anyway. The marriage ceremony itself is unconventional. The bride's head is shaved. She dresses in male clothing. She lies alone in a darkened room. You, after dinner at the Sicea and under cover of darkness, sneak out to meet her. It's a clandestine affair, a quick, furtive coupling, and then you return to your barracks, to sleep with your messmates, because your primary loyalty remains with your unit, not your spouse. This secret marriage continues for years, You sneak out at night to visit your wife. You conceal your visits from your comrades and superiors. This fosters a strange sense of longing and novelty, supposedly keeping your passion alive. Or, more likely, it just makes it terribly awkward and ensures you never really build a deep personal connection. The bond is physical, practical, not emotional. Because emotion, again, was, you know the drill. The goal is children. Healthy, robust children. Especially sons. If your wife doesn't produce offspring, or if the children are weak, the state might even suggest you allow another, more virile Spartan to impregnate her. Or that you take a second wife, all in the name of producing more warriors. Your feelings on the matter, irrelevant. When a son is born, he is inspected, not by you, but by the elders. If he is deemed healthy and strong, he is allowed to live, to be raised by his mother until the age of 7, to eventually enter the agoj. If he is deemed weak or sickly, he is exposed, left to die in a ravine. A harsh, but necessary, measure to ensure only the strongest survive. You, having endured the agoj, probably view this with cold, clinical acceptance. The sun sets, casting long shadows. You're in the mess hall, the sounds of conversation, a dull drone. You might for a moment think of your wife, her face, the hushed moments of your clandestine visits. But the thought quickly dissolves, replaced by the cold, clear logic of Spartan duty. Your purpose is to fight, and to breed, and nothing more. Because in Sparta, even love is a tool of the state. And you are just another implement. You've spent your life learning to live without comfort, without luxury, without even basic conveniences. This isn't an accident. It's the core of the Spartan ideal. Simplicity. And by simplicity they mean bare subsistence. Your clothing, as you know, is minimal. One wool tunic, rough, unwashed. No adornments, no changes of clothes, no footwear usually. The idea is to despise extravagance, to see it as a weakness, a distraction from your true purpose. Because how can you be a fierce warrior if you're worried about wrinkles in your chiton? You can't, obviously. Your home, if you even bother with it as an adult, is Spartan simple. Small, functional, no ornate furniture. No elaborate decorations, no tapestries, just basic wooden benches, a hearth for warmth, and the bare necessities for living. Even the highest-ranking Spartans, the kings themselves, lived lives of remarkable austerity, at least outwardly. No gold-plated toilets here, just a hole. Personal possessions are virtually non-existent. You don't accumulate wealth. You don't have heirlooms. Your tools are state-issued. Your weapons are designed for function, not beauty. The very concept of personal property, beyond what is absolutely necessary for your immediate function, is discouraged. Because desire for possessions, you see, leads to corruption, to softness, to unmanliness. This extends to your diet, of course. The black broth, the hard barley bread, its sustenance. Not enjoyment. You are taught to despise rich foods, to view them with suspicion, to be content with the bare minimum, because a man accustomed to luxury cannot endure hardship. And you, my friend, are built for hardship. Even Spartan currency reflects this. Large, cumbersome iron ingots, heavy, impractical for large transactions, designed to discourage accumulation of wealth. To prevent trade and commerce from flourishing in a way that might introduce foreign luxuries or ideas. Because external ideas, also a weakness. The sun begins to set, casting long shadows. You're sitting with your messmates in the communal hall, chewing your piece of barley bread. The simplicity of your life is absolute. No distractions, no temptations, just the unyielding rhythm of training, duty, and austere living. You are lean, hard, utterly self-sufficient in the face of deprivation. And that, you are taught, is your greatest strength, because a man who needs nothing fears nothing. Or so they say. You've been trained to obey, to fight, to die for the state. But what exactly is this state you owe everything to? From your perspective, it's less a political system and more a rigid, unchanging hierarchy of command. Sparta, unlike its Athenian rivals, was not a democracy in any sense you'd recognize. No eloquent speeches in the assembly. No debates over grand ideas. Your voice as a common Spartan citizen was heard only in a limited, tightly controlled capacity, and your role was primarily to approve, not to initiate. At the top there were two kings. Yes, two. From two different families. This was an ancient system, designed to prevent any single ruler from becoming too powerful. They held military authority. They performed religious duties, but even they were not absolute. Because in Sparta, everyone served the state, even the kings. The true power lay with the ephors, 5 elected officials. Elected annually, they supervised the kings. They oversaw the agoge. They controlled foreign policy. They could even, gasp, fine the kings, or put them on trial. They were the iron hand of the state, the unblinking eyes that ensured everyone, from the lowliest boy to the highest king, adhered to the Spartan way. They represented the pervasive oversight that defined your life. Then there was the Gerousia, the Council of Elders. 28 men over the age of 60, plus the 2 kings. They drafted laws. They acted as a supreme court. They were the keepers of tradition, the embodiment of Spartan wisdom and conservatism. Their word was, for all intents and purposes, law. You, as a younger man, were expected to revere them, to obey them, to emulate their stoicism and devotion. And finally, you. As a full Spartan citizen, once you reached adulthood, you were part of the Apella, the assembly of all male citizens. Here, you would vote on laws proposed by the Gerousia and the ephors. But it wasn't a debate. Oh no, it was a simple shout, a roar of yes or no. The loudest side won. No lengthy discussions, no nuanced arguments, just a raw demonstration of collective will, and you were expected to align with the consensus. Because dissenting, also a weakness. So your participation in Spartan governance is, by modern standards, incredibly limited. You don't choose your leaders in a complex election. You don't influence policy through eloquent persuasion. Your role is to be a silent, uncomplaining, fiercely loyal soldier. To trust that those above you know what's best for Sparta, and to obey without question. The sun is setting. You're in the mess hall listening to the murmurs of the older warriors. They might discuss the latest pronouncement from the ephors, or a new decree from the Gerousia. You listen. You absorb. You don't question. Because the Spartan system, brutal and unyielding, works. It ensures stability. It maintains order. It produces warriors. And that is all that truly matters. Religion in Sparta isn't about grand philosophical debates or personal spiritual journeys. It's another tool of the state, another layer of control. The gods exist. They are powerful, and they demand your obedience. Just like the ephors, just like the kings, and just like your paidinamos. You learn about the gods from a young age. Not through lengthy texts or complex theological discussions, but through rituals, through festivals, and through the constant reinforcement of their importance to Sparta's success. Apollo, Artemis, Ares. These are the deities who bless Sparta, who ensure victory in battle, who demand sacrifice and devotion. Your religious duties are prescribed. You participate in public sacrifices. You offer prayers for victory. You attend festivals that are a mix of athletic competition, military parade, and solemn ritual. These events are not joyous celebrations in the way you might imagine. They are often austere, disciplined, focused on the collective good of the state, not individual revelry, because even religious ecstasy, you see, must be controlled. The kings, as religious leaders, consult oracles, especially the oracle at Delphi. Their pronouncements carry immense weight. They guide military campaigns. They inform state policy. Because if the gods are not on your side, what hope does a Spartan have? You learn to trust these pronouncements, to accept them without question. Because questioning the gods is just as dangerous as questioning the Aphors. Even your brutal training has a religious dimension. The hardships you endure, the pain you suffer, the discipline you embody, it is all seen as a form of devotion, a way to honor the gods and earn their favor. You are sacrificing your comfort, your individuality, your very being, for the glory of Sparta, which by extension is the glory of the gods. Superstition is ever present. Omens are watched carefully. Prophecies are revered. A sudden earthquake, a strange birth, an unusual bird flight. These are all signs from the divine. Interpreted by priests and elders, their meanings influence decisions, from marching to battle to planting crops. You learn to respect these signs, to be aware of them, to incorporate them into your rigid worldview, because even the most disciplined warrior is still at the mercy of the divine. The sun dips below the horizon, casting the sky in hues of purple and orange. You might say a quick, silent prayer before you settle into your hard bed. Not a personal plea, not a heartfelt confession, but a simple formulaic request for strength, for victory, for Sparta. Because in Sparta your faith is not your own. It belongs to the state. It is another duty, another obligation, and you fulfill it, just like every other command, without question, and without much personal feeling. You've lived a life defined by the anticipation of death, glorious death, in battle. This isn't a morbid obsession. It's a core tenet of Spartan identity. From the moment you were deemed worthy of survival as an infant, your path was set. Live for Sparta, and die for Sparta. The concept of a good death is deeply ingrained. It's not a quiet passing in your bed, surrounded by loved ones. Oh no, that's for the weak. A good death is on the battlefield, facing the enemy, shield held firm, dying for your comrades, for your city. That is the ultimate honor, the ultimate legacy. Anything less is a failure. You're taught this constantly, in the stories of heroes, in the songs of valor, in the relentless physical training that prepares your body to endure unimaginable pain, not just to live, but to die effectively. You are trained to fight to the last man, to never retreat, to never surrender. Your shield, your most prized possession, is not just for protection. It's your epitaph. To return without it is the ultimate shame. To be carried upon it is the ultimate glory. You literally go out with a bang. When you go to war, your wife or mother might famously tell you, "Come back with your shield or on it." There's no sentimental farewell, no weeping, just this stoic command. Because they too believe in this ideal. They too have been trained to value the state above individual life. The fear of death, for you, is probably less about personal annihilation and more about failing to die properly. The fear of cowardice, the fear of shame, the fear of becoming a trembler, a man who lives but without honor. That, you are taught, is a fate far worse than any death, because death, at least, provides an escape from the unrelenting burden of Spartan life. Burial rituals are simple. For those who die in battle, a monument might be erected. A simple stone inscribed with their name. For those who die otherwise, a quiet, unceremonious burial. Only men who die fighting for Sparta, or women who die in childbirth, for they too face a battle, receive an inscribed grave. All others are nameless, forgotten by the state, because their deaths didn't serve a purpose. The sun has finally set. Darkness enfolds the barracks. As you lie on your hard bed, you might contemplate your own inevitable end. Not with fear, not with regret, but with a quiet, almost detached acceptance. You are a Spartan, You have lived your life for the state, and you will die for it. And that is your purpose, your entire existence, and your only legacy. Rest now. Your final battle awaits. So you've endured it all. The agorge, the hunger, the endless training. You've fought in battles. You've returned, perhaps with scars, perhaps with the grim satisfaction of a life of duty fulfilled. What happens now? Does a Spartan warrior get to retire, put his feet up, enjoy a peaceful old age? Oh, bless your heart. The concept of retirement as you know it simply doesn't exist. You are a Spartan. You are a warrior. You serve the state until you are no longer capable, or until you die. Whichever comes first. Even in old age, you retain a role in Spartan society. You might become a member of the Gerousia, the Council of Elders, if you're deemed wise enough. Or you might serve as a paid nomos, inflicting the same brutal discipline on the next generation of boys that you once endured. It's a cycle, you see, and you are now one of the gears. Your life remains austere. No sudden influx of wealth, no grand home, no soft comforts. You continue to eat in the Syssitia, to participate in communal life, to uphold the Spartan ideal of simplicity. Your physical capabilities may decline, but your mental fortitude, your unwavering loyalty to the state, is expected to remain absolute. You are an example, a living monument to the Spartan way, a very, very tired living monument. Perhaps. The wounds of a lifetime of training and battle will ache constantly. Your joints will creak, old scars will throb. There are no pension plans, no comfortable old age homes, just the continuation of a life of duty, albeit a slightly less physically demanding one. You will spend your days watching the young boys train, a grim, knowing look in your eyes, recounting tales of past glories, and reminding everyone, constantly, of the unwavering demands of the state. Even if you live to a very old age, past 60, you're still subject to the Spartan code. You're still expected to be sharp, to be disciplined, to be useful. Your wisdom is valued, but your weakness is still despised. Because in Sparta, weakness is a luxury no one can afford. The sun has finally set on your Spartan day, and perhaps on your Spartan life. You lie on your hard bed, the cold stars glimmering above. Your body is a testament to endurance. Your mind, a fortress of unwavering loyalty. You have lived your life for Sparta. You have fought for Sparta. And you will die for Sparta. Without complaint, without regret. Because that, you learned, was your purpose. You didn't last a day in ancient Sparta. You lived a life. A brutal, disciplined, unyielding life. Defined by hunger, pain, and the unblinking eye of the state. You were forged into something unbreakable, something fearsome, something utterly, utterly Spartan. And now, you can finally rest, or, at least, sleep lightly, because even in death, a good Spartan is always ready. You survived infancy. Congratulations. That was your first, and arguably most terrifying trial in Sparta. Because here, your life wasn't simply granted at birth. It had to be approved. The moment you emerged, squalling and red-faced, into the world, your fate hung in the balance. Your parents didn't decide if you lived. Oh no, that was far too much individual sentimentality for Sparta. Instead, you were brought before the Gerousia, the Council of Elders. These weren't kindly old men. They were hardened veterans, unblinking arbiters of Spartan strength. They would inspect you, not with loving eyes, but with a cold clinical assessment. Was your body sound? Were your limbs straight? Did you appear robust and healthy? They weren't looking for beauty or charm. They were looking for potential. Potential to be a warrior. Potential to be a future Spartan. Anything less was unnecessary. If you were deemed physically imperfect, too sickly, too weak, deformed in any way, your fate was swift and absolute. You were deemed unfit, not for a life of comfort, but for any life. You would be taken to a place called the Apothete, a deep chasm near Mount Tegetis, and there you would be exposed, left to die, without ceremony, without lament, just silence. This was not considered cruel. Oh no, it was considered merciful, or, at the very least, logical. To allow a weak child to live would be to doom him to a life of suffering, unable to meet the harsh demands of Spartan existence. It would also be a burden on the state. And Sparta, you learned, tolerated no burdens, only assets, a harsh truth, but a very Spartan one. Your parents, surprisingly, likely accepted this without question. They too were products of the system. They understood that the state owned their children. That individual sentiment was a weakness. Their pride lay in producing a strong, healthy child, one deemed worthy by the elders, one who would one day march in the phalanx. So, as you lie in your hard bed, the cold stars glimmering above, think for a moment about that first, unseen hurdle you overcame. That silent judgment, that cold assessment. You were deemed worthy. You passed the first test, even before you could walk, even before you could speak. And that, in Sparta, was the beginning of everything. A very brutal beginning. You were not immediately hurled into the agoge the moment you were approved by the elders. Oh no, there were 7 precious years before that. 7 years where you were still, technically, with your mother. And while this sounds like a period of loving nurture, it was Sparta. So, of course, it was also another layer of careful, state-controlled conditioning. Your mother, a Spartan woman herself, was your primary caregiver. But she wasn't coddling you. Coddling was, as you might expect, unmanly. Or, in this case, un-Spartan. She would train you even in these early years. Not with sticks and spears, not yet, but by exposing you to hardship, by teaching you to endure discomfort, by instilling the basic principles of stoicism. You were bathed in cold water, from infancy. You wore minimal clothing, even in winter. You were discouraged from crying, from complaining, from demanding attention. Your appetite was not indulged. You ate what was given, when it was given. Because self-denial, you see, started early. Your mother didn't tell you flowery bedtime stories. She told you tales of Spartan heroes, of brave warriors, of glorious deaths on the battlefield. She instilled in you the concept of honor, of duty, of unwavering loyalty to Sparta. Her love, such as it was expressed through this rigorous preparation for your future. You also learned about the Helots from a young age. You saw them. You knew their place. You learned the subtle fear and contempt that defined the Spartan attitude towards them. Your mother would have reinforced this, instilling in you the necessary mindset for maintaining control over the enslaved population, because the foundation of Spartan society was built on their backs. There were no toys as you know them, no soft blankets, no indulgent treats. Your play would have been rudimentary, focused on physical activity, on developing strength and agility. It was a childhood designed to prepare you for the inevitable, the rigorous, brutal, all-consuming training of the agoge. So for those 7 years, you were a small, uncomplaining, constantly observed Spartan in training. Your mother, though present, was simply the state's first instructor, imparting the foundational lessons that would prepare you for the next far more demanding phase of your life. It was a gentle introduction to a very, very harsh world. And then, at age 7, you were taken, and your real life, your real training, truly began. The Syssitia. You've eaten the black broth there. You've sat in communal silence. But the Syssitia was far more than just a dining hall. It was the bedrock of Spartan adult life. And like everything else in Sparta, it was meticulously structured to erase individuality and foster absolute loyalty to the group. Once you became a full Spartan citizen, your daily life still revolved around this mess hall. You didn't just eat dinner there. You spent most of your waking hours there, socializing, discussing military matters, engaging in the laconic wit that defined Spartan conversation. It was your club, your office, your second home, and your first priority. Membership in a syssitia was mandatory and exclusive. You had to be elected unanimously by the other members. A single black bean could deny you entry, shaming you and effectively stripping you of full citizenship. Because if your peers didn't want you, then Sparta didn't want you. This fostered intense conformity and loyalty. Everyone had a vested interest in pleasing their messmates, because your entire social standing depended on it. The conversations were disciplined. No gossip, no frivolous chatter, only discussions about war, state affairs, and the brave deeds of Spartans past. Young boys, like you once were, would sit and listen, absorbing the lessons, learning the social cues, and practicing their laconic answers. It was a constant, live-action lesson in how to be Spartan. The contribution of food was also crucial. Each member was expected to provide a certain amount of barley meal, wine, cheese, and figs each month. This communal contribution ensured everyone was fed, at the Spartan standard of fed. Anyway, it reinforced the idea of collective responsibility. And woe betide the Spartan who couldn't meet his contribution. That too led to public disgrace. Even your marriage, as you recall, revolved around the syssitia. You sneaked out from it to visit your wife. You returned to it to sleep with your comrades. Your loyalty to your messmates, your fellow warriors, always superseded your loyalty to your family, because the phalanx, you see, was the truest bond. So as you sit in the communal hall chewing your barley bread, you are part of an ancient, unyielding tradition. A tradition that has stripped away your personal life, your private thoughts, your individual desires, and replaced them with the collective will of Sparta. You are a member, you contribute, you conform, and you endure. Because your life, from beginning to end, belongs to the syssitia and the state. Enjoy your grim loyalty. Let's talk about relationships beyond the battlefield. Specifically, the bonds forged in the agoge. Because in Sparta, emotional connections, much like everything else, were carefully curated to serve the state. And sometimes, those connections were intimate. Spartan society was, to put it mildly, homosocial. Meaning, men primarily lived, trained, and socialized with other men. Women did the same with other women. Your life in the agoge ensured this. You were removed from female company at 7, and for the next decade plus, your world was entirely male. Within this intensely male environment, deep bonds formed. Friendships, rivalries, and often something more intimate. It was common, and indeed accepted, for older, more experienced warriors to take younger boys as their lovers. This practice, known as paiderasty in the ancient Greek world, served a specific function in Sparta. It wasn't just about pleasure. Oh no. Nothing in Sparta was just about pleasure. It was about mentorship, about instilling discipline, about forging unbreakable loyalty. The older warrior, the Orestes, would guide the younger boy, the Aromenos. He would teach him, protect him, and, crucially, inspire him to be brave in battle. Because you wouldn't want to show weakness in front of someone you admired so deeply, would you? The relationship was less about romance as we understand it, and more about a brutal, intimate form of patronage and instruction. It was expected to be chaste, supposedly, though the reality likely varied. The older man's role was to develop the boy's character, to mold him into the perfect Spartan, and the boy's role was to obey, to learn, to aspire. These bonds were considered vital for military cohesion. A phalanx, you see, fought better when its members loved and respected each other deeply, when they had personal reasons to protect the man beside them. And these intimate homosocial relationships provided that extra layer of motivation. You fought harder not just for Sparta, but for the man who had shaped you. So, as you grew, you might have experienced this yourself. The stern gaze of an older warrior, the quiet words of advice, the shared hardships, the unspoken understanding. It was part of your education, part of your formation, and part of the intricate web of Spartan society. The sun sets. The air grows cool. You lie on your hard bed, surrounded by your comrades. The bonds here are intense, unyielding, forged in shared suffering, in relentless discipline. And sometimes, in the quiet, unspoken intimacies of a life lived entirely for the state. Because in Sparta, even love was a weapon. A very carefully controlled weapon. You've trained your entire life for this. The theoretical battles of the Agoge have given way to the terrifying, brutal reality of the battlefield. This isn't a glorious charge from a Hollywood movie. This is the clatter, the crush, the visceral horror of the phalanx. You stand in line, shoulder to shoulder. Your hoplon shield, heavy and burnished, overlaps the shield of the man to your left. Your spear, its bronze head glinting, is held steady. The air is thick with dust, with the metallic tang of sweat and the nervous energy of hundreds of men. You can hear your own breath, the rhythmic thump of your heart against your ribs, and the low, guttural chant of your comrades. Then the advance, not a run, a slow, deliberate shuffle, each step synchronized, a human bulldozer pushing forward. The ground trembles with the collective weight. The sound of your feet, your breathing, your shields rubbing against each other creates a terrifying rhythmic hum. You are a single, unified entity, an unbreakable wall, or so you hope. The enemy appears, a chaotic mass, their shouts, their weapons. You brace yourself. The world narrows to the space directly in front of your shield, your spear, the man next to you, and then the impact. Not a collision, a crush. The force hits you, jarring your teeth, rattling your bones. The sound is deafening. Bronze on bronze, wood on bronze, the clash of spear shafts, the grunts of exertion, the screams of men. You thrust your spear, again and again. It's not elegant, it's brutal, repetitive. You push forward, you gain inches, or you lose them. The heat is immense, the dust choking. You can taste blood, probably not your own yet. The man in front of you falls. You step over him. The line pushes forward. You are a piston in a human engine. Your shield is your protection, but also your comrades. To drop it, to break ranks, means death for everyone. So you hold it, even when your arm feels like it's tearing from its socket. The battle is a terrifying, claustrophobic press. You can barely see, barely breathe. It's a primal struggle for space, for survival. You stab, you shove, you protect your side. You feel the give of flesh, the snap of bone, the spray of blood. It's chaos, controlled chaos, but chaos nonetheless. Hours can pass like this, or minutes. Time becomes meaningless, just a relentless grind of steel and bodies. When it's over, if you survive, you are drenched in sweat, blood, and dust. Your body is a symphony of aches, your mind, a blank void. You look at the fallen, your comrades, the enemy, and you feel nothing. Or you pretend to feel nothing. Because emotion, you see, is for the weak. And you are Spartan. Religious devotion in Sparta wasn't just about solemn prayers and grand festivals. It had a darker, more visceral side. A side that involved whips and blood. Welcome to the annual ritual of the Diamastigosis. the ritual scourging at the altar of Artemis Orthia. This wasn't just a punishment. It was a public spectacle, a test, a display of unyielding Spartan endurance. Every year, young Spartan boys, slightly older than you are now, would gather at the temple of Artemis Orthia, an ancient, venerable deity. And there, they would be whipped. Brutally, relentlessly. The ritual involved boys attempting to snatch cheeses from the altar while being scourged by older Spartans, often their former paidonomoi. The goal wasn't just to get the cheese. Oh no. It was to endure the whipping, to stand firm, to show no sign of pain, no flinching, no crying, to literally bleed for Sparta. Because in Sparta, suffering was a sacred act. The whipping was severe. Whips made from various materials, sometimes from oxhide, would lash across their bare backs, blow after blow. The sound would echo in the temple. The blood would flow freely. The boy would stand, if he could, rigid and unyielding. His face a mask of stoicism, or a mask of unimaginable agony expertly concealed. Sometimes a boy would collapse, from pain, from blood loss, from shock. If he did, he was removed. Not with pity, but with a quiet, solemn acceptance of his failure. The whipping would continue on others. The ritual demanded endurance, not collapse, because weakness was. Well, you know the drill. The Aphors, the highest officials of the state, would preside over the ritual, watching every boy, assessing their endurance, their capacity for suffering. This was their final brutal examination before they became full Spartan citizens. It was a public display of the Spartan ideal, a demonstration to the Helots and to other Greeks of the unbreakable spirit of the Spartans. A nation, they believed, that literally bled for its principles. As you lie in your bed, the cold night air wraps around you. You've seen this ritual, perhaps even participated in it, if you're older. The memory of the sting, the smell of blood, the rigid determination. It's a testament to the Spartan way, to the unwavering belief that pain forges strength, that suffering leads to honor, and that is the sacred truth of your life. Rest now. Your body may be sore, but your spirit, they believe, is unbowed.
You've heard of the Aphors, those 5 elected officials who held the true reins of power in Sparta. They weren't just administrators. They were the unblinking, all-seeing eyes of the state. And their power was absolute. While the 2 kings held military command and religious duties, the Aphors were the ones who truly ran Sparta. They supervised the Agoge, overseeing your brutal training directly. They could find the kings. They could even put them on trial for misconduct. Their authority permeated every aspect of Spartan life, from the lowliest helot to the highest ruler. They were the ultimate authority, the final word. Elected annually, they were technically common citizens, not from noble families. This was supposed to provide a check on the power of the kings and the wealthy elite. But in practice, their power was immense and often terrifying. They held the power of life and death over Spartan citizens. They could dispatch the Cratia on their chilling missions. They dictated foreign policy, and they ensured unwavering adherence to the Spartan code. You rarely saw them directly, especially as a young boy, but you felt their presence. Their watchful eyes were everywhere. In the meticulous discipline of the Agoge, in the severe punishments for any deviation from the Spartan ideal, in the constant pressure to conform, because they were the guardians of the system, and the system, you learned, was everything. Their power was most evident in their ability to initiate the Cratia, that annual terror against the Helots. They would declare war on the Helots, symbolically, even in times of peace. This gave legal sanction to the brutal clandestine murders carried out by young Spartan men like you. It was a chilling reminder of their authority, and of the constant fear that underpinned Spartan society. The Aphors embodied the collective will of Sparta.
Their decisions were final. Their word was law. And their judgment, especially regarding your performance in the Agoge, could determine your entire future. Whether you became a full citizen, whether you could join a Syssitia, whether you were, in essence, a Spartan. The sun sets. The darkness deepens. You lie on your hard bed, the aches in your body a familiar companion. You might not think directly of the Ephors, but their presence, their power, their unblinking authority has shaped every moment of your existence. From the moment you were inspected as an infant to the day you became a warrior, you have lived under their watchful, unyielding gaze. And that is Sparta's true, unwavering, and utterly cold heart. Rest now. They are still watching. Sparta had no grand temples to rival Athens, no sprawling academies of philosophy, no vibrant theaters. The concept of art or culture as other Greek city-states understood it was, to put it mildly, frowned upon. Because anything that encouraged individualism or self-expression or softness was seen as a weakness. Your education, as you've experienced, was entirely practical. Military drills, laconic speech, survival skills. There was no time for idle pursuits, no encouragement for poetry, or painting, or sculpting. Those were seen as distractions, frivolities that softened the mind and body. And you, remember, were meant to be hard. Music existed, but it was primarily martial. Chants, hymns, rhythms to keep the phalanx marching in unison. Not melodies for pleasure or contemplation. It was a tool for discipline, for cohesion, for inspiring courage on the battlefield. Anything else was un-Spartan. Dancing, too, was a form of military drill. Rhythmic movements practiced in groups, designed to improve agility, coordination, and the ability to move as one unit. It wasn't for entertainment or personal expression. It was another facet of your relentless physical training. A grim, synchronized performance of readiness. Even literacy was limited. You learned to read and write only what was absolutely necessary, enough to understand commands, enough to perform basic administration, but no more. There was no encouragement for widespread reading, for philosophical inquiry, for engaging with foreign ideas, because new ideas, you learned, could be dangerous. They could lead to questioning, and questioning was also a weakness. Your life was a stark, unadorned canvas. No embellishments, no luxuries, no art for art's sake. Every single activity, every single aspect of your existence was geared towards one purpose: military strength. To produce the finest warriors, to maintain control over the helots, to preserve the Spartan way of life. And art, they believed, didn't help with that. The sun has set. The communal hall is filled with the low hum of conversation. Stories of past battles, discussions of military strategy. No poetry recitations, no musical performances for pleasure. Just the stark, unyielding reality of Spartan life. You don't miss what you've never known. You don't yearn for beauty when your entire existence is focused on utility. And that is the ultimate Spartan victory over the spirit, to convince you that boredom is actually productive. Humor. It exists, even in Sparta. But it's not the light-hearted, boisterous laughter you might imagine. It's dry, it's dark, it's cutting, and it serves a very specific Spartan purpose. You learn to appreciate laconic wit, brief, sharp, delivering a punchline with minimal words. It wasn't about telling long jokes. It was about delivering a devastating retort in a single pithy phrase, because efficiency, you see, extended to comedy. This humor often revolved around mocking softness, mocking foreign excess, mocking those who failed to live up to the Spartan ideal. It was a way to reinforce values, to police conformity, and to express a certain contempt for anything that wasn't Spartan. Laughter, if it happened, was usually at someone else's expense. You might hear stories of Spartans responding to threats with legendary brevity, like when Philip II of Macedon sent a message saying, "If I invade Laconia, I will raze Sparta to the ground." The Spartans famously replied with a single word, "if," short, to the point, and utterly chilling. This was the height of Spartan wit, not designed to make you laugh, but to impress you with their defiance and their willingness to die. In the Syssitia, there might be banter, but it would be rough, challenging, designed to test a man's composure, to see if he could take a jab without flinching, without showing anger, because losing your temper was, naturally, unmanly. Sometimes older Spartans would deliberately get helots drunk, not for fun, but to display their supposed un-Spartan behavior to the young boys, to show them how disgraceful and uncontrolled indulgence could make a man. It was a grim form of object lesson, a perverse kind of entertainment, a mockery designed to instill discipline. The sun sets, the shadows lengthen. You're in the communal hall listening to the low murmurs, a cutting remark, a brief, shared chuckle. It's not a joyful sound, it's a hard sound, a sound born of endurance and a grim understanding of the world. Because in Sparta, even humor was a weapon, used to sharpen the mind, to enforce the code, and to remind you that the only acceptable emotion was stoicism. So, try not to laugh too loud. It might be misinterpreted. You are forged in the crucible of Sparta. You live your life for the state. You embrace austerity. You learn to die gloriously. But even the most disciplined city-state, the most fearsome warriors, cannot escape the relentless march of time. And eventually, even Sparta began its slow, inevitable decline. For centuries, Sparta was the undisputed military power of Greece. Its unique system, its disciplined warriors, its unwavering commitment to the phalanx made it virtually unchallengeable on land. You, and generations before you, embodied this strength. But the system, so rigid, so inflexible, also contained the seeds of its own demise. One of the main issues was the oliganthropia, the decline in citizen numbers. The strict requirements for citizenship, combined with constant warfare and those rigorous physical inspections at birth, meant fewer and fewer full Spartan citizens. You died in battle. Your male children faced the same gauntlet, and the pool of true Spartan warriors steadily shrank. Fewer Spartans meant fewer phalangeites, and fewer phalangeites meant less invincibility. Wealth also became an issue. Despite the laws against luxury and the iron currency, wealth slowly crept in. Land accumulated in the hands of fewer families, particularly women, due to inheritance laws and dowries. This led to increasing inequality, a widening gap between the very rich and the struggling poor citizens. This undermined the communal spirit of the Syssitia and the foundational ideal of equality among peers. Because it's hard to despise luxury when your neighbor secretly owns more helots than you do. External pressures also mounted. Other Greek states, particularly Thebes, learned to counter the phalanx. They developed new military tactics. The Battle of Leuctra in 3071 BC was a devastating blow. Sparta suffered a catastrophic defeat. Many full citizens died, and Sparta's military dominance was shattered. The unbreakable line, it turned out, could be broken. The helots, always the helots. Their constant resentment, their sheer numbers, remained a persistent threat. And as Spartan power waned, the helots sometimes seized opportunities for revolt, further destabilizing the state. The foundation, you see, was always built on a volcano. So, as you age, if you are lucky enough to live long enough, you witness this slow decline. The glory of Sparta, once unchallengeable, begins to dim. The harsh discipline remains, but the invincibility fades. You might spend your later years watching a less numerous, less powerful generation of Spartans train, recounting old glories, lamenting the loss of the old ways. A grim, slow, inexorable fading of the light. Sparta wouldn't simply vanish overnight. It would linger for centuries, a shadow of its former self, eventually absorbed by larger powers like Macedon and Rome. Its legacy would be one of discipline and endurance, but also of inflexibility and the tragic limits of a society built entirely for war. And you, the warrior to the end, will die watching it all, without complaint, because that is the Spartan way. The sun has set for the final time on your Spartan day, and with it, the relentless cycle of your Spartan life. You were forged in pain, honed by hunger, defined by an unwavering, absolute refusal to back down. You were, truly, a warrior. A product of a system so utterly unique, so intensely focused on one single purpose, that it defies modern understanding. You never knew a soft bed, or a full stomach, or a moment of unadulterated, unobserved peace. Your body was a tool, your mind a weapon, your life a testament to discipline. Every ache, every bruise, every raw patch of skin was a mark of your belonging, a quiet badge of honor in a world that valued stoicism above all else. You marched in the phalanx. You endured the black broth. You faced the Criteia with a blank stare. You produced children for the state, and you died, most likely, gloriously, on the battlefield, shield held firm or carried upon it. This was your purpose, your entire existence, and your only legacy. Sparta, the city that built you, eventually faded. Its iron will, once unyielding, slowly eroded by time, by demographic decline, by the changing tides of warfare. But the idea of Sparta, the legend of the Spartan warrior, forged in hardship, unyielding in battle, that lives on. A grim, compelling, utterly uncomfortable ideal. So, as you lie in your own bed tonight, perhaps on a memory foam mattress, perhaps with clean sheets, your stomach full, your body comfortable, no looming threat of a Paidonymous' stick, no gnawing hunger, no watchful eyes of the ephors, no desperate need to steal a turnip just to survive. Consider for a moment the silence, the comfort, the sheer luxurious softness of your own existence. This was a freedom that you, the Spartan, never knew. A comfort that would have been scorned as a weakness. And yet, here you are. The story is done. The Spartan day is over. The warrior sleeps. And perhaps, in the quiet hum of your modern world, you can appreciate the peace that comes from simply not being that hungry, or that cold, or that Spartan. Now, dim the lights. Turn on a fan. Let the sounds of ancient hardship fade day, and drift into a sleep undisturbed by sticks, or black broth, or the constant cold demand of glory. Sleep well. You've earned it. Unlike them.